Good morning, good evening, um, good afternoon, everyone. So wherever you are. So today's session is about leveraging the power of conversational insights, for sales success. While the concept or whatever we are going to talk about is around the theme of conversational insights, right? I think from a use case perspective, I thought I'll just give talk more about how we have implemented this solution more for sales teams to track their KPIs, get answers on demand and all that. So that's a whole, at a very, very high level, or rather 10,000 or 20,000 feet, summary of what we're going to talk about today. So just a quick introduction about us. Highling Digital it's a global company based out of Seattle primarily and across the globe. And where I come from, from Purple Slate, we specialize on conversational AI related services and platforms. One of which is what we're going to talk about today, right? So that's myself. I'm the co-founder as well as the chief product for Purple Slate. Significant portion of my time, spent in Wall Street building technologies for financial institutions, and been running this company for 7 years now, right? So just before we get into the topic around conversational insights, right? I'm sure many of you have spent good amount of time in the data and analytics space or business intelligence. So I thought I'll just talk about four major pain points, which it's just kind of very prevalent today, in the BI world. I'm sure many of you who have been in the BI space, would be able to easily relate to it. The reason I start with that is also because, these are like the core areas, which the solution around conversational insights helps us address, as well as specifically, for the topic of today's discussion, how do sales teams, how can sales teams really leverage these, this technology for some of the challenges in the BI world, right? One is, definitely, it's like analytics efforts take forever. BI projects, there are plethora of tools available, one to produce a dashboard, another one to produce a report, another one for mobile applications, self-service analytics, you name it. There is a significant amount of time and effort and even costs is being invested in these tool sets with a very expensive licensing costs and all that. And the second point is also something which is a very familiar scenario especially in very large organizations or enterprises, right? So there are just too many dashboards, especially when with companies becoming more and more digital, the amount of data which we collect is extremely high, and then making it available to diverse set of users, and each one of them, their need is different, and then the reason they use data is it's different. So it's we just end up creating way too many dashboards and scorecards and metrics, right? Metadata, especially with the way the amount of data, the diverse data set that is getting captured, metadata is really becoming a big challenge. Especially with glossary management, how the business teams interpret the data, from the as it goes through the digital ecosystem, the mapping between the technical terms versus the business terms. It's one of the if not significant, it's one of the major pain point in the consumption of data today. And self-service BI, which is basically how quickly can we equip the business users, how easily can we make them consume the data for decision making by without much involvement of the technology team. This itself is really becoming, even though there are plenty of tools available for it, but it is becoming more of it's a very tough ask. And then it is not necessarily self-service. There is still a significant amount of time and effort put in to curate the metrics or the analytics, for the business users, right? Having said that, what it all boils down to is this. I think, on an average, I mean, this is it's an interesting stat from one of the research. It's people do spend a significant amount of time, looking for information, whether to take actions or make decisions, or even to get informed. A simple question, even in meetings and all. Um, it's significant amount of time, we're just spending in just looking for that information or getting the answers, calling this person, that person, and then, analyzing spreadsheets. That's the way, it is. Despite all the investments in technologies around, the data engineering, data warehouses, business intelligence. I mean, to some extent, the amount of investment that's being made in the field of data science and all that, right? So, and other reason is also what they call is, the big data fallacy. Even though, companies have very, very large volume of data, the amount of data that is very, very much useful or rather relevant for the decision making is the small red dot, which you see here. So more and more the data analytics or the data science problem, it's more of the it's the needle in the haystack problem, how, or rather what they call is the signal and the noise, right? How do we really look for this piece of information, or how do I get answer to this question I have at this moment? Whether I'm meeting a customer or, I need to take a decision, I'm just looking for one specific number. How do I get that, within this whole, very large set of data set, which I have, right? And also the traditional BI tools versus the modern, I mean, this is a very interesting graphic, which I found in one of the HBR issues. It's while everything else around us, in the ecosystem around us, when things are getting extremely fast, you can hail a cab in few minutes, and then, right from the, airline, there's so many things, things are happening, we are able to order food, just from our phone. But at the same time, getting access to data, it's usually, we end up calling somebody or had to do a lot of number crunching before that data really becomes usable, right? So I think the BI space is, it's I think, I would say that the time is kind of very much ripe, for to jump, to look for solution, which is extremely focused on the future, especially with the advent of generative AI and, more of the natural language based or search based consumption. For any other piece of information in our life, we rely on the popular search engines. We just go there and ask, type in a question, and then, we boom, we have the answer. But anything else within the enterprise, it's still a lot of challenge, a lot of work has to be go, whether it is as simple as, even if some Excel sheets, if we have to crunch the numbers before we get an answer, there is a significant amount of effort, which goes in there, right? So how do we, I mean, the goal, or rather the topic for today's discussion, even though, it's specific to the sales cycle, but the goal is how do we really, make this enterprise data easily available for business users, right? So that's the whole idea behind, this, the topic what we're going to see today. It's around conversation insights. So at this juncture, let me just quickly show you some example of what we have here, right? So this is, so just give me. Okay. So, say for example, I'll get into most details on, and what is this application and all, but just to giving you an idea of, what exactly do we mean by that, right? So it's say for example, I have a simple data set on sales. There is a whole bunch of, information, various attributes, and then, so I have this data set here, right? So basically, I'm a sales manager responsible for, say, the West region. So rather than, just looking at, I'm in my sales review call, and then I'm just asking the question like, hey, So I just asked this question, and then it just throws me. Gives me the answer back. I mean, I'm talking about sales, so I have the sales number here, and in addition to that, it also gives me. It is kind of answering my question. It says, hey, by the way, since we are talking about second quarter, it has gone up by 60x certain percentage, and this is the average in the second quarter, and so many orders, and also it gives me a visual. Hey, this is how these are, right? So in addition to that, so say for example, now I ask this question, okay, so this looks good, but I just want to look at it by, we are talking about the rest region. Can you just break it down by city? So it says, hey, you know what? These are the cities. This is how the sales are. If you want to really visualize it differently, so there are so many different visuals you can look at. In the second quarter, there were like 29 cities, how they really contributed to the total sales and what is the average and all that. So and if I really want this information, I also have the underlying granular data, right? So now while I'm doing this, I also want to know, hey, I'm specifically looking at, say, we ran some campaigns for, say, for one of my furniture product unit and around furniture. So I just want to know by filtered by furniture. So let me show me, I can even ask, hey, show me the furniture sales alone, right? So it says, hey, this is how it is. And so the same data, I have this ability to slice and dice. The only thing is the key difference between the way you would be doing it today, by looking at any dashboard, by applying certain filters and all that, there is, I mean, we're just taking a completely different approach in the sense, when we have a problem that's in front of us, when we are using data to solve a specific problem, rather than going with some preset reports and filter, dashboards, can we just go with this approach of, why can't we just let people ask the questions they have in their mind, very much relevant to the problem, which they are trying to solve, or, whatever they're trying to analyze, or certain actions they need to take. The the significant advantage, which I would personally feel, which is very unique to this approach, it's kind of, it's a completely free format question answer mode. And whoever the user is, right? I think, I mean, I'll once plus significant advantage I'll also tell you is there is not even a single line of code, which you're writing for you to get these answers. But more than that, the this this approach around conversational insights kind of caters to a very diverse set of users. That's one of the biggest problem we have with the current set of BI tools today. So you have the user personas are different, the consumers of data are different. Each one of them have their own need, they have their own sets of questions. What we invariably end up creating is a dashboard for each one of them. I mean, that requires significant amount of time and effort, but at the same time, there is this proliferation of dashboards and metrics, right? So rather, what we're really saying is, if we have to provide a very simple interface like this, which is like a simple search bar, and on this, once you have this application, I mean, I'll talk more about, what this application is and all, in just a few minutes. But if you have a data set, and then, if we can just build a model, build an engine which can respond back to question and answers on this data set, right? Catering to any set of users. That's at the high level, that's what we really call as conversational insights. I mean, you're kind of engaging in a conversation. So the another, I mean, this is like a search bar, right? So now let me also take you through another interface, which is really conversational. It's almost like a chat interface. I mean, whether it is Teams or Slack or anything, I'll just come to this left sidebar. So I'm just the same question, whatever I asked, I can just ask the same thing here. So I'm just asking some question, it just lets me slice and dice the data. Now, since we are talking about, so I'm more interested in this is for the, so I'm just going to ask, can you, So it just tells me, hey, I mean, we were not really doing well on furniture in Texas. Now I can even ask, you can see this, it is talking about profit and then what's the average, how many orders, and then, you can also see it applied these filters from the question, you're talking about furniture in Texas. Uh, you can even, hey, can you really break it down by region, which region is, so there is only one because, we are talking about the, in Texas. Now I can ask the question, the same thing, if I just asked the question of how about California? It kind of, the reason we call this conversational is also because, it kind of uses the context from the previous question. We were just talking about show me the profit. We are talking about profit in furniture in Texas. Now, I just said, hey, show me how about California? It kind of understood, hey, we California and Texas are state, just replace the like variables, and then it still showed me the profit for furniture in California. So I just end up doing a conversation like this, and still the same output, in terms of looking at the details. There are a few more insights, I'll just come to that in a minute, what exactly those insights are and all. But this is the whole idea behind conversational insights. Yeah, I mean, so when you have a data set, can we just like how we interact with fellow humans, using a chat interface, whether it is Teams, Slack, or anything. Similarly, can we engage in a conversation on our data, using a platform like, what I'm showing here, it's Kia. So that's the whole idea behind conversation insights. And this is completely agnostic of whatever the data set is. But I today, given the topic of the session with sales success, I'll show you a lot more use cases on how some of our implementation, where we have really delivered a solution like this, for our customers, primarily around use cases on sales, right? So that's the whole kind of, I thought I'll give a quick introduction on about the solution. And then before I just jump into how this really helps and why a solution like this, really makes sense to in today's age and all, right? So heading back to any questions or any comments so far, on what you just saw. Okay, so let me just quickly skip to a few slides, and then we'll get back to the demo. And there is also a version of this application available on mobile platform, which I'll also show very soon, right? So this is the idea. I mean, while we have today, we have BI tools which helps us produce reports and dashboards. Instead of that, can we just have the users just ask the question? Like the examples I just showed, can we just have the users ask the question in simple English, right? Why such a solution is even more relevant today, right? So I'll just quickly give you some few reasons. So if you really look at the evolution of information systems, from left to right, we had all these legacy mainframe computers, then there were reports, static reports, and the PC revolution kind of spearheaded these spreadsheets. And then you had the more and more, as more and more processes, business processes and businesses got digitized, you had these BI, the heavy investments in data warehousing and all, kind of really led to lot more investments in the way people consumed information using business intelligence tools. And then of course the smartphone revolution kind of it also helped to more and more having this, making this information accessible in a mobile phone, with the smartphone era and all that, right? So now with that, what is really happening is, as you look at the x-axis, the amount of time, or rather, which we really had to get access to this information, that is also getting extremely limited, right? So, I mean, so that's why today, for anything else, for any of our information needs, we kind of rely on the Google search engine. I mean, immediately, we just go to the search engine and then ask that question. The expectation or the experience, I mean, especially with companies accumulating a lot amount of data, is also something similar. Can I have a very, I mean, what we really call is a momentary information need at this point in time, whether I'm in a meeting or I'm in front of a customer, or, and there is this, for my decision making, there is this one question I have in mind, how do I get access to that momentary source piece of information, right? I think that's where we feel, the way we consume information, moving away from the traditional dashboards and reports and spreadsheets, it has to be something different. It's just like if I have a question today, I would ask someone, who's more knowledgeable. Can we have a similar approach, for those momentary information needs, right? Um, this is just a quick, representation of how we normally get our answers. When we have an information need, we ask a trusted source. That trusted source could be, a human being, if it's a knowledgeable person or an Excel sheet, we just go and, or even looking at the dashboard, we just stare at the dashboard, try to interpret or try to get the answer, we have, it could be like, hey, how much did we make last month? Perhaps just by looking at the report or doing a summary on a spreadsheet, I'm going to get that piece of information. And then, we get the answer. At the same time, this goes in a cycle till we have our answer. The answer invariably leads us to more questions. And then we slice and dice the data, we look at the trends, and then, we dissect it till we have the answer we really need. And then, using that answer, we kind of take actions or make decisions, right? So now look at the way, the analytics world of today. If this is the way we consume information, I mean, I'm sure many of you who have been in this BI world would be very much familiar with this term, the dead by metrics. There are just way too many charts and metrics and dashboards and scorecards, right? Each one of them catering to different needs and different people, because, as I said, the information needs for different individuals are different. So we end up creating so many different variations of these dashboards and reports, right? The information access is still too technical. What we really mean by that is, you still need someone to write a piece of code, or even though we have these self-service BI tools, there is still a significant, amount of time that is spent in curating these reports or even doing the prep work with the data, before somebody could even use it on these tools, right? So I think, there is still a good amount of technical work involved in, in producing this information. And as I said, if you really look at the cycle, the asking a trusted source and getting the answer, it just um, extreme, it is still not momentary. If I have a need, usually it is like, even if when we are running a meeting, when someone is looking at a performance score, we are viewing the sales numbers, the data could be there for, like, say, the last quarter. When we ask them, hey, how much was it the last quarter in the same year? The invariably something, which we are very much used to is, can I get back to you? Maybe I need to talk to this person, or I need to go and get this data, and then, and before I answer this question and all that. So getting access to this data for the answer, it is still, there are some extremely painful delays, and then, which kind of, getting access to that information takes time, right? And also, what we I call this the infinite loop of data and BI projects. I need this information, and you go to the data analyst, say, hey, no, I don't have this. Can you create a project? Especially, these are some of the frustrations, um, between the business users and then the technology users. And then, hey, we don't have it in this warehouse. Let me bring it in. And then, say maybe, this data set doesn't, or this dashboard doesn't have this metric. Can I go and add this metric? Hey, what? I would like to break down the sales numbers by this dimension. Hey, can you show me the sales numbers, broken down by region? No, I don't have this region information. Let me go and add it, right? I think this cycle of, whenever there is a new need to consume information, everything really becomes a project, and there is a delay, and then it takes time and effort, for people to consume, especially when the data set is very, very large in large companies, so it's all of this takes time and, effort. And this is also something, it's like the operational overheads eating away your data. I mean, most of the time, users have a specific need for that information, whether to take decisions or actions. And then, so just because we are spending time and, whether to build a data pipeline, to source this information or to create this metric, organizing them, in a dashboard form, and then making it available. There is all of this, the time which is spent on, definitely could have been spent on time, which could have been spent on more, which is closer to the business, more useful to the business and all that, right? I think the delays definitely have a significant impact in, what we really do with the data and, in the actions and decisions, right? So, I mean, this is the way I would even summarize, that the modern information access challenge is not about the data capture and store. I think the technology around data engineering, the big data stores have extremely mature, and then, we have most of our organizations, we just spend too much of, and we have ability to capture this data. Now, the biggest problem is more on the consumption layer, not necessarily on the capture layer. How do we make this data easily available? How do we make this available to a very diverse set of users? And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, metadata is really becoming a challenge. How do we really make sense of this data? How do we, describe this, the business terms, and then the technology terms, and then how do we even make it available to a very diverse set of users? Right? Not all of them would consume the data, in the same form. So each one of them have a different need on what they really want to do with the data, right? So that's why, I think I really feel that the modern information challenge is more on the consumption layer, right? So and when we say this is a consumption layer, it's not just about the availability; it is also, the speed. For how, I mean, as I said, today's information needs are all more extremely momentary. Just like how we go and ask a search engine, even for our business needs. I just have a question in mind. Can I really ask that? It's like at this moment. That's where I think the speed also becomes one of the extremely important modern need, right? So that's why, as I said, the fundamental premise of conversational insights is around, can we just have the users just ask, rather than, trying to interpret the question, interpret the, metric and then get the answer, right? So there is always this, even when you're staring at a chart, right? I think there is this cognitive overload where we are trying to interpret it and get the answer we have in our mind. Rather, why can't we just let the user ask that question, and then it spits out the information what they really need, right? I think that's the fundamental approach behind conversational insights. So here are a few examples. When we say, I mean, I also showed you just a few minutes back on Kia, our platform, how those questions really are framed, right? So I mean, these are some examples around how some of our users have really been using our platform, whether it is in the healthcare space or anything. So it's um, I mean, so say that the first one is all these you can see, these are all questions in English, and then it's the application kind of response back, whether it is in the numbers or visualizations and all that, right? So now, just I mean, just to contrast it to the dashboards which we consume today, here's a simple example. Where are we really spending the most? If this is like cost dashboard, right? Rather, can we really have replace, or rather the way we interpret this, some of these metrics into a question? Okay, which region is doing well in electronics, and then it just responds back, hey, it is the west region. So it is like a pointed answer to the question which we have, along with few of the metrics which are very much relevant to that question, right? So that's the premise of the conversational insights. So this is the platform. I mean, which it's a completely low-code platform, white labeled. Even though we call it as Kia, right? I mean, by the way, if you're just curious, why we even named it as Kia. See, Kia is one of the smartest parrot species in the world. I mean, so that's so we thought, hey, why not pick this bird's name, to name our platform, right? So it is what exactly is Kia? I mean, I just showed an example. It just gives you the ability when you train your data sets, to a platform, and then it can just has an ability to answer a whole bunch of questions, completely free format questions, without writing a single line of code. I mean, all it requires is, I'll just show you what I really mean by training the data sets on Kia. I mean, there is a low code platform available to make this happen, but once the data set, Kia's trained the data set, it is completely any kind of questions on the data set, only limited by the attributes in the data sets. it can just respond back in numbers and visuals. And then there is a whole bunch of other value added stuff, which I'll also show quickly, right? So say for example, even specific to sales success. I mean, so these could be the different aspects of sales metrics. Somebody might be interested in, hey, how is my sales performance over a period of time? Or it could be like, hey, I just want to understand the customer behavior on how they are really purchasing stuff, or rather the product performance. Hey, we ran a marketing campaign for this particular product. Is it really bearing fruit? I mean, are we seeing the results? Or should we run another campaign? So it's who are the target customers for these campaign? I mean, all these kind of you ask a question and then you have an underlying data. Can we really make this data actionable? I'll just show you examples of it and all that, right? So I think that's the whole idea behind and how you could use a conversational insights like approach to cater to very, very diverse set of use cases as well as diverse set of user personas. And then, as I said, it could be right from a sales manager reviewing his performance to, say, a sales director who's responsible for a larger scheme of things, to different, I mean, even some operational, team members, who really have to take this data, file some regulatory reports, whatever it is, right? I think one interface, how can it really cater to very, very diverse set of personas and use cases, right? So this is the simple definition of our platform. I mean, what Kia really does is it helps you get instant answers to the questions you have at this moment in simple language constructs. I mean, we really, as I said, we really feel a platform like Kia with conversational insights. It's falls very much into the next evolution of BI. How we really move from dashboards and reports and even consuming it in the mobile platform. How do we really take it to the next level in the more in the world, which is more and more, getting the benefits of AI. And when we say AI, and also, the ability to, ask questions in English, whether it is voice interfaces or the natural language interfaces and all that, right? I think including big data processing, and then various machine learning stuff to get some insights, very useful insights and all that, right? So that's where we kind of see positioning conversational insights. It's more of how users would consume information in the future. Just like again, going back to this analogy which I keep mentioning, how do we really consume information today for anything else, right? I mean, it is just a simple search bar. Why should that experience not be replicated even within for our business needs or enterprise needs, right? I think that's the premise behind something like Kia with conversational insights, right? So going back to that example, I was, the way I was saying, can we the asking the part, which is highlighted in blue, can we just replace that, with something like here? So whenever the user has an information need, can we just come and ask this question? We just saw how it happens in a search interface as well as, and then the chat interface, right? How do we really make that happen where, you have the ability to just ask that question in English, right? So, or in simple terms, this is what the platform does. How do we turn data into a bunch of question and answers, right? So at this point, let me quickly move into a few more demos of this, right? So by the way, when we say Kia getting trained on a data set, so there is this is a low code platform, which we have. So it's like all we have to do is when we add a new data set, the data could be in any of these form, or it can connect to most of the popular database systems, which are, or it can even connect to applications, which and then source the data through APIs, or you can connect to a streaming platform like Kafka and all that. So let me, given the time, we just have another 15, 20 minutes more, right? So once you have a data set like this, so say for example, I have already onboarded a data set, so these are the whole bunch of attributes. These could be lying in different, whatever the schema, it's not necessarily all the data has to be in a flattened structure. It can be very, very large. Some of our largest implementations, it has like close to 1 billion rows of data, and then, in a very diverse schema and all that, right? So it's you have all these attributes. And say, for example, the single one of the biggest advantages of something like an application around conversational insights is, say, I have something called as a customer name, right? I have an ability to define synonyms for it. Hey, not necessarily you have to call them, with the customer name. You can call it as client, buyer, purchaser. You can define a vocabulary which is closely aligned to your business needs. And then, this way, we are also kind of solving the business data glossary problem, mapping the technical terms with the business terms. And also there are a few more things, which I want to highlight. It's more like, hey, this particular field, if it is really sensitive, I can mark it as, this is a PII information. Let me pick another data set to show this example. So it's okay. So I can define, this is really a sensitive information, and then, I can just go and mark it as sensitive. That way, say if I take this customer name field, I can say, hey, this is sensitive. Whenever you are asking questions on this, I mean, Kia would mask it, and so it's one is, taking care of this PI data, and also the other thing is it also comes with a very, sophisticated role-based access control. You can really define rules on, who gets to see what and all that. So whenever we're saying, data access, it goes without saying. I mean, there is good amount of privacy and security, rules. You have ability to define those rules and configure them as well, right? So once you onboard a data set like this, then it's a simple matter of all those data sets becoming available here. And let me just so, let me just take another sales data sets here. This is again a data set which is like close to 12 million rows of data. I can just so for this particular data set, you can see that, hey, this is the glossary I have, group them by categories and numbers and all that. So I can definitely, use this data set to ask questions like, hey, so this is basically, that a whole bunch of data, with on the sales of books. I mean, so all of this I can, we can look at the details, and then say, for example, let me ask a question on, hey, so books sold in Memphis. So these are this many books, and now one aspect of it, which I didn't show before, was the insights, right? So I can go and ask, hey, show me what are some of the contributing factors, for this, right? So you can see that while we are talking about, the books sold in Memphis, it also tells you, by the way, what are the different payment types, which were used. So some of those very important dimensions, it kind of analyzes and tells you, hey, what, even though these were the souls, these are the popular publishers in Memphis. And then, and also, what kind of ship mode do people use for these data set? I mean, for this, the orders, which were sold. All these kind of comes as part of, I mean, look at this, right? All these insights, you get to it, without writing a single line of code, all based on the context of this question. Say, let me ask a question on, hey, so show me the daily trend. So I'm just asking a couple of cities, and then, hey, show me. So it just gives me the trend on how, um, the sales kind of happen in these two cities. You have an option to change the visualize types. You can, there are quite a few stuff, which you can do to visualize this, the answer you just got. So now even here, now I can go to, and then, hey, give me, since we are talking about trend, can I really see a forecast of this, and for the books which were sold in these two cities, right? It should come up in a minute. Yes. Okay, yeah, here it is. So this is what you see in orange, I mean, this is the actual sales which happen, and what you see as purple is the forecast, I mean, so all these things, whatever Kia does here based on the question, you just asked. So say, for example, I asked a question on, hey, um, so I'm just asking a question on this. Hey, they were like, so for this data set, for these people, maybe I, as a sales team, right, I want to run a campaign saying, hey, these people, but so I may want to send, a marketing campaign. What we can really do is integrate it with a whole bunch of apps, so you can create a task and then, say, for example, even if you want to run a marketing campaign, you could integrate it with whether any of your sales, the CRM based marketing tools. In this particular one, say I really want to share this, with someone, I can schedule this, say, on a specific frequency, and then, password protect this data, share it with somebody, download it in different formats. Your ability to even produce reports kind of, now becomes like a question. It's not necessarily, you have to write different reports, for different use cases, I mean, different filter conditions and all that. Whatever question, you just ask, that data set, the underlying data really becomes, useful for you to either for the next level of integration with other applications, or how you really want to consume it, if you, even if you want to share it with somebody and all that, right? I think that's why it's not just about getting an answer. What you really, Kia also helps you take it to the next level. What do you really do with this data set? And then, how do you do the follow-up actions and all that, right? So this is just one example. And another thing, what I really wanted to highlight is this. So it's as you are asking questions, there is a whole bunch of stuff. All your questions get saved in an inbox. You have an ability to mark. Say, for example, this is a question which you want to come back again and again. You can just mark it as a favorite, and then it's going to appear in your favorite. And I'll show you quickly talk about what life stories are. This is a different interpretation, or rather different flavor of what we would, how we consume data through dashboards today. Not necessarily a dashboard which is curated for, a specific purpose. Here it is like, hey, there is a whole bunch of KPIs or answers, which I want to track every day. How do I really, look at that on a daily basis so that, without even creating a dashboard and all, right? So that's what, life story. I'll just come to that. And you have an ability to, the reports, as I said, you can schedule reports at different frequencies, I mean, which are nothing but the answers to the questions. And then, so they are available as reports. So most of the way, we consume the BI output today, whether it is as a visualization or a metric or KPIs, and then, you have the reports, all of this kind of, is just now available in a very simple search like interface along, or, this is the other way of, in the same questions, whatever we just asked, it's also available in a chat interface, right? So it's, if I go here, in the inbox, I can still see let me go to the data set, which I just used. So whatever questions I just asked there, it's say that the one which show me the books in Kindle format from book, all of those questions are also, it is a truly omni-channel platform. It is available, whether it in the chat interface or the search, you can still do the same here. Now, the other part here is, what do we really do? It's like, say, let me go to one data set here. It's on, okay, go to my sales desk. So I asked a question on, hey, so I'm just asking a question. Here I see this number. This doesn't look right. I know someone else, who's really responsible for this. What do we normally do? We just take a screenshot, share it with people, and then, ask them the question, hey, this number doesn't look right. What do we really do? Instead, what I can really do is I can bring them into this conversation. So Alex, I know that Alex is the one, who's responsible for this. I invite Alex to this conversation. Now, both of us, can chat with Kia and say that, hey, so this way, um, absolutely, we're just eliminating these, offline communication with the screen shares and images, email exchanges, and all that. Now, the collaboration kind of happens within the context of data. Now, Alex, myself, and Kia, we can chat and look at the numbers, do the analysis, and from here, right? I think this kind of saves a lot of time and effort, in the way we consume information today, right, through these offline channels. So, the chat interface kind of mimics how we would do that. I mean, it's like if you're using a collaboration platform like Slack or Teams, we can now do the same thing, even with Kia. The other thing is, hey, I can even share this with somebody in Teams, so I can. So this now, goes into the Teams, and then, it's available for that person. So it's you. Kia is also now available as, it's a Teams bot. It'll just message them on Teams, right? So they really do not have to, look at emails or anything. It's kind of improves the collaboration aspects of it on, how we really consume information, as well as, what we really do with that and all, right? So there's a quite a bit of stuff. The other thing in the chat interface is also does is, while you're asking this question, there is a whole bunch of recommendation. It just gives you, by the way, hey, would you like to break it down by segment? So say if, I ask something like, hey, so I'm just asking, hey, show me the distribution of sales. So he just gives me a frequency distribution. I can just, hey, even split this. There is a whole bunch of skewness towards the left. I can keep, drilling down, and then it just lets me view the data this way, right? Till I have this information. And the same thing, as I said, the contribution factor is one significant, benefit. So it's when we were talking about a sales, what exactly, how does this number even, happen in the first place? Is there a way, I can look at what contributes to it? It just takes a little bit of time. On how we arrive at this number, what are the different dimensions, different values, which really contributed to it, right? I think that's what the contribution, that's one very, very important aspect of which many of our customers use and all that, right? So it's basically, I mean, as I said, the if I have to really summarize it, it's your ability to ask completely free format questions on your data set, with the ability, to have multiple synonyms in the vocabulary, which makes more sense to the, the business folks. Along with it, there is a whole array of follow-up actions, which we can really, including having a discussion thread, sharing it with different people, converting it as reports, integrating with any of the downstream applications, and all of this kind of, happens here. The Signal biggest advantage is, it's a low-code platform where any of these visualizations, whatever you're seeing here, I mean, there is absolutely no line of code. I mean, you really have to do right. I mean, it's all it cares about is only the data set, right? So coming back to, how it the whole thing really works, it's you. I mean, like the interface I showed you, you train your data set, and by the way, Kia is completely vendor cloud platform neutral. It can run on Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, anything, or even the large enterprises. What we really do is, we bring our software, within your firewall so that nothing goes out. And there is also, I mean, for us, we also focus more on small and medium scale businesses. It's available as a SaaS platform where we provide a very secure storage and all that, right? Supports most of the popular database systems. We can directly connect to the databases and then, source that information. Or the most likely, what we really do is, we kind of, replicate the data set into what we call as a Kia data model. This gives you a lot more flexibility, in terms of like doing our, many of the insights. So this kind of gives us the ability to analyze the entire data set and respond back, not just with the answer, and also with a lot more insights and all that. So quick steps, you can just connect to any data source, build the vocabulary, including the synonyms and all that. The answers, you have these different formats, the search interface, the chat interface. I'll just take 2 minutes, to show the mobile application as well, right? So let me, at this moment, let me share my mobile app. Just give me. Yeah, I hope you can see my mobile application. So this is a Kia app, which is extremely popular. It's almost like your virtual data buddy, which who travels with you, just like how we would message our friends, whenever to. So there is a whole bunch of data sets which I have, so including the one, which we just saw. I can go here. The biggest advantage is, just like Siri, Kia also has an ability to respond back in voice, right? It can take a voice input. So let me just do it here. Show me the sales in Texas in the second quarter of 2019. Looks good. And then, I can just, so it just responds back with, there is a voice output as well. And then, it gives me all these insights. I can just engage in this conversation, just like how we saw that on the web application, right? Show me the sales in Texas in the second quarter. So even here, I can definitely bring in more people, and then, into the conversation, I can chat with them. This way, it's all of us, we just see. So for this particular conversation, I can just bring them in, and then, we can chat. Or there is a whole bunch of things, I can do, adding it to a story. There is this storyboard, as I was telling you about the dashboards thing, right? So let me just show you quickly what a storyboard is. So I have this data set now, right? So the live stories, I mean, these are like a whole bunch of KPIs, which I would definitely like to. So I have defined this, hey, I'm just looking at the West region, and then I can just flip. I'm just looking at it by another metric, and then, it's, and then if I really want to look at it, I can look at the details, and then, and I can just go back this way. There is a whole bunch of stories, or rather, it's basically a bunch of KPIs, which I need to track, and those are really made available as, what we call as a story. The only thing is, these are, whenever I go to the detail, it just gets me the most current information. These are not like saved, stale information. As we are, looking at it, it kind of maybe, it's everyday morning, this could be the only thing, which we need. Just keep flipping and just look at the numbers, and then, we use it for decision making, right? So the mobile is, it's a very, very powerful, I mean, very commonly used by many of our customers, especially in the iPad version of it. And, it's, as I said, it's almost like your traveling companion, without the need to log into any of the web applications or anything, you just have the data analysts accessible to you, in your smartphone, right? And of course, I just mentioned about take actions. I'm almost done. I know it's like just a little over time, but integrating with any of the downstream applications. So it's like you can, the response to the questions, you can just connect to any application which have APIs, whether it is your CRM or, assigning a task to somebody. All of this, there is a whole bunch of, integrations which we have, can do. And completely, as I said, it's better cloud neutral. We can deploy it on premise, or, where we bring the software, or, it's also available as a host solution, in a secure cloud, right? And definitely, I mean, we really mean by that in sense, if there is as simple as if it is a, even if it is a very large CSV, all it takes us just a few minutes, for you to get connected and trained, and then, you start asking questions. But most of our enterprise implementations, it's like we build the data pipeline and then, connect Kia to it. And also, there is this to how do we define authentication rules, how do we define the access rules and all of that, we kind of do that along the engagement, just to just make sure the data, sufficient privacy and information security controls are in place and all that, right? I just talked about it the way, that the ecosystem goes like this. The studio is the low code environment. and then you have the search widget, the mobile app, which I just showed, and then also the chat application, right? And this is another one, I mean, whatever output you see here, it's not necessarily, this has to be in this particular. If you really want the search bar to be integrated, it is completely white labeled. You can embed this application, just like few lines of JavaScript code in any of your other application, and then, Kia becomes available. In fact, most of our users or rather customers, consume Kia in a different way. It is either Twinkle, Oscar, Engineering, whatever name, that reflects a brand. That's the way, they really use this. So you can also integrate Kia and make it available within your, other enterprise applications. It's just a very, very simple, integration with few lines of JavaScript code, right? As I said, it's powered by a low-code framework. Just a few, features which I have highlighted. Many of them, just as I said, web app, web white labeled, omni-channel. It can handle very large data sets, response in both voice, text, and visualizations. I showed you examples around the insights, and then getting access to the granular data, your ability to, schedule the reports. And then there is a whole bunch of governance, security governance module, which is part of Kia. And basically the idea is, how does it really help? It is with the time to market, without the need to build any of this. That's the biggest advantage. And again, whenever we talk about data, it goes without saying, I think, we design this whole application, what we call as a secure by design approach. There is a lot of controls in place for our users, to make sure the data is protected, and then, the right people get access to the right data and all that. There are so many different ways, in which we take care of that. Bottom line, this is the summary of Kia. It's why, how does it even help changing BI needs, complete information platform, right from sourcing to getting answers to taking actions. And everything kind of comes down to, how do we do it at a much cheaper cost and lesser time, right? So it definitely focused on reducing the total cost of ownership for BI applications, as well as, the agility. Because as I said, today, as we put data in the hands of so many different people, everyone's needs are different, and then, your ability to get insights has to be that much more quicker. How do we really make that happen? To suit the modern day agilities is one of the primary goal for Kia, and the way we achieve that, right? Use case teams quickly. How do our users, make use of Kia? It's even though it's a question and answer based, simplified access, like the simple search bar, you can embed it, make the data available. And the mobile application, as I told you, it is almost like you're traveling, you're at the airport, anywhere, it's you're on the beach. You have a question without the need to sign into different applications and BI tools. Can I just the way I message my friend, can I ask that question and then look at that piece of information, right? I think that's a very, very powerful way in which I personally feel the way data would be consumed in the coming days. It's this momentary information need, right? Collaboration, we just short, how we could use the way we interact with other team members and Kia. Can we really bring in collaboration within the data set, within the same interface as well, right? Actionable insights, I told you, with the deeper integrations. And this is even though it's kind of more legacy kind of application, there are large organizations, especially, they have ton load of reports today, and many of them require good amount of effort to maintain and all that. Rather, I mean, we have examples where we help customers get rid of 300, 400 reports, and with a simple interface like this, so no need to handcraft reports, for different filter conditions, different data sets and all that. Just let the users ask the question, take the underlying data, you just use that to deliver scheduled reports based on periodicity, wherever you want to send it, including, the ability to protect the files and all that. So the whole data distribution kind of now, it starts with a very simple, search interface, right? Quite a bit of very happy customers. We have had some very good success with this tool with a lot of our customers across industries. Many of them, especially The business folks are the ones, who are extremely benefit because of the ability to ask questions in the terms, closer to the business, right? So the last slide, I think, it's the last slide. It's like summary. How Kia really helps is, the simplest of the conversational interface, ability to ask the questions in the language, respond in multi-mode, voice, visuals, and text, and then of course, goes without saying, secure, lot of security practices, to protect the data, right? It just helps you, simplify data access to everyone in the organization, right? I think that's the whole idea. So here's our coordinates, and then, I know it was 1 hour too short, but definitely, we'd be more than happy to engage with any of you. If there is interest, we can do a deep dive more into the technology. There is a lot of free POCs, we do. If you really want to get a hang of it, if you want to do a day, even a simple CSV would be fine. We can work on a POC and then talk about it more. Definitely. I mean, we also help them, how even within their ecosystem, how this application would even fit in and all that, right? So, would definitely, if there is interest, would be more than happy to engage in a follow-up. So yeah, that's again another trademark we have, love your data again, with very simple tools but at the same time, very powerful tool like, Kia.